everyone. Welcome back to our, what is it, fourth
Fourth
episode now?
episode.
Yeah. So,
Woo!
we're going to talk about community and culture today. But before we get into that, we wanted to reflect back on our weekly challenge. And that was creating soft spaces, soft edges within our physical
Yep.
environments. Then the other side of that was going to shared spaces within our community and finding ways to connect within both of those environments. So, shared spaces and creating soft edges. We're just going to kind of take turns, see how that challenge went for us, see what we felt, what we liked, didn't like, maybe.
Okay.
So, if Amanda or Olivia want to kick us off.
I can start us off.
Okay.
Last episode, I talked about wanting to go to the library, and I drove past it almost every day going home from work. And because I drive, it is almost on the road that I live on. And I stared at it, and I did not end up going to the library. And I was reflecting on, like, what was the barrier? Why did I not go? I was so excited. I could imagine I was like daydreaming of just being in there looking at books. I
So,
know.
you're daydreaming about it, but you
I
didn't
know.
go.
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't mentioned this yet, but when I was growing up, my mom would take us to the library, like, every day after school.
Yeah.
I have such beautiful memories of being in a library. But yes, I was reflecting, and I think that this might tie in with our episode pretty well, but I was tired. Like, every day after work, I was
Yeah.
tired, and I was also daydreaming about my couch, laying on my couch and not doing a thing. So, yeah, I didn't end up connecting in that way to my community, but I did end up buying more wood to make more, like, spaces for raised beds, and I'm ordering some soil, so I'm gonna be creating some soft edges, just not yet, I'm getting prepared to.
Okay.
Oh, I love that. So you were thinking about, like, how you could create a soft edge and
Mhm.
a softer space in your own home. That's
Yes.
really cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. All right.
What about you, Courtney?
Yeah.
Um, so something that I've been doing here recently, and you guys have heard all about it, but I think a shared space that I go to is my soccer games.
Yeah.
So something that really took me by surprise was when I went to my first soccer game. There, it was at this complex, and there were probably, I'd say, 100 plus cars there.
Oh my gosh.
So you pull up
Yeah.
and
Pull up.
so you pull up to the soccer fields, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, there's probably gonna be, 3 teams, so maybe 30 people out
Uh-huh.
here. No, I pull up to the share space, and it is like everyone and their mom is there, and I love it. I'm immediately become so hype
Yeah.
because I'm sitting there thinking, it's not just me, and it's not just 10, 20 other people.
Yeah.
There's people doing lacrosse, there's people doing baseball, there's people doing soccer, there's people doing practices. So it was really cool to, just go to that shared space and see how many other people were also already in that, and enjoying those activities, and so I've been doing
Yeah.
that for, well, this tomorrow will be my 7th game, so 7
Oh my
weeks.
gosh.
So 7 weeks of having, that space, and that was one that really stuck out to me this week when we were doing our challenge, was that is a shared space, and it's a place where
Yeah.
a lot of different people can show up and come together and play. And so I guess kind of another leg to that, I didn't know anybody on the soccer team.
Mhm.
My brother
Yeah.
and one of my friends plays with me. But beyond that, I knew no one else on the soccer team. And now I've got probably 5 other people that I really enjoy hanging out with. I love, talking to them, catching up with them every
Yeah.
week. And it's just funny because now I know their spouses' names. Now I know where they work, what they do.
Yeah.
So, just that was one big way that I connected, I think, within that community this week. So I loved that challenge, and it made me really think about showing up on those shared spaces.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah. What about you, Olivia?
I think I thought a lot about because I drive through, like, to get to my house in my community, in my neighborhood, I drive past a lot of houses. So I spent a lot of time just looking at, like, how people's front spaces were set up
You were
and, like,
judging. Going through and giving
that
them a grade.
so that was a 10 out of 10 for a soft space.
This house looks so uninviting.
No, but I think funny enough, like, the houses that do have those soft edges are the houses that I immediately think about in my head when I think of my neighborhood, and, like,
Ooh.
I can picture, right? And I, like, know
Yep.
those houses,
Yeah.
or we had a lot of wind, so a lot of the houses, like, their front basketball net was, like, knocked down, or there was a cushion flown off into the middle of the right, so, like, you just notice those things, and I knew they were out of place because I noticed those houses more just because of the way they're set up, like, it's somewhere my eye is drawn to, so I think I just paid a lot of attention to how people create those soft edges, and then also I went to Yeehaw Brewing Company this weekend, and they actually had, I guess, like, a big bass fishing tournament on the Tennessee River
They
this
sure
weekend.
did.
Was really cool because I think fishing is something that is, like, important to my dad and to his dad and to, like, that kinda side of the family, and it's funny how, like, I even feel connected to those people even
Yep.
when we're not together. So I got to be in a shared space with, like, a bunch of people who love that, and we're talking about it, and I got to feel connected to those people and with a whole new group of people, which I think is really cool how that curates that too, and it ties us back to, like, old memories or
Mhm.
people that maybe we're not able to connect, like, are not with us in the same area or in the same environment, but we still feel connected to them through those things. So that was really fun, and I didn't know that was going on in my community until I ended up going to Yeehaw. So that was super fun. And then another shared space, I did the bar crawl downtown for St. Patty's Day, which I love that. I love the holiday St. Patty's Day. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Probably because I get to go on a fun bar crawl.
Yeah.
But my favorite way to connect is dancing. So, and you guys know that. You came to Nashville with me. You saw my dance moves. And
That's
I
so fun.
love just being able to hype people up and make them feel confident to, like, move their bodies and dance and have a good time, and that is really, truly one of my favorite ways to connect, and I haven't done that in a really long time.
Get your recommendations on places to go for dancing.
Yeah, and I'm
'Cause
still looking, like, I would
Mhm.
love recommendations from anyone listening too, because
Yes.
I truly love doing that, so
Yeah.
and I have the toxic belief that I can get anyone to dance.
That's a great
That I can hype anyone up to get out on the dance floor and have a good time, even if it's for, like, 2 or 3 minutes and then they're done.
Well
That's just
well,
my toxic trait, so
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
what? No, 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 I have a thought that I'm going with this.
Okay.
What was your sign? What do we call those? Kodiaks, zodiacs.
zodiac signs.
Yes.
I'm a Libra.
A Libra.
Okay, and Libra was what? Charming and
Charming,
something.
gentle,
Hey,
Balanced and
what?
just.
balanced and just.
Yeah.
I think we're a little bit of pick-me's, which
Okay. Okay, do you
I
think
I see your face, Amanda.
I love it though.
think though do you think with you being a Libra, does that feed into the thought of
I thought you
toxic
didn't
trait?
believe in this stuff.
I'm talking to you.
Okay, okay.
Alright, I'm recognizing your beliefs, Miss Libra. So do you think that feeds into the thought of I can get anyone to dance? Do you think you're that charming?
I am that charming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes. Yeah. The
Thank you.
answer is yes.
That's what
Yep.
I yeah. Alright, I'm gonna write that down in my should I keep on you guys?
More
Weirdos.
information.
Top concern.
Energy. I love how both of your guys' stuff had that childlike wonder to it, like playing a sport and dancing and like being, ugh, I need to dance
Well,
more.
hold on, why are you assigning that as a child?
Because
You're saying that that's just a child
it's
thing.
like because when we turn into adults
you.
and we go into college and we have to start working our jobs, I feel like we get away from like playing our sport and having our hobbies. So
Yeah, but I think you also have to be intentional too.
yeah,
Like, I don't know
true
that it's
that.
just been assigned as being a child thing. I
Yeah.
think as adults, though, you just have to be more intentional with it.
Yeah, well, I guess it just reminds me because it was so much easier to do those things. Or your
It
parents just
is
signed you
very
up.
much easier, yes.
But now we have
because-
to be very intentional to go out and have fun and play
Yeah.
when you
And it was cool to hear too, like, you have good memories going to
Mhm.
the library as a
Oh, it is
kid.
the best.
But you avoided it.
I know.
Yeah. And you have good memories playing soccer.
Mhm.
Like, I was able to connect to some memories of, like, going fishing with my grandfather and my dad and then
Mhm.
being in that space and reminded of that.
Do you have memories of dancing?
I sold
Oh,
I
okay.
sold tickets to my dance shows. Like, I would choreograph a routine and then sell tickets to my cousins and my not s
Oh,
but, like, I would
like,
make fake
they
tickets
would
and then they would have to come to my
I was
performance.
about to be highly insulted that I did not receive
I mean, I
need
could
to see that.
choreograph something if you want me to.
Please do.
Yes. So,
Okay.
but I think that's funny that it was kind of all tied back to that too, like some
Mhm.
nostalgia.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
like us talking about having a dance party before work starts, So instead of just going straight into the work, we all dance and listen to a song together.
I'll listen to
We haven't done
music.
that yet.
Not dancing
I'm
before
just
work, though.
no,
I'll dance after.
dance after.
Mhm.
We
No.
just get you too hype if you did it before
Well,
work.
don't.
I'm gonna dance to get myself in a good mood and be like, "Oh, now I gotta go do
Oh.
work." Are you kidding me? What a letdown.
It's a little balance. That means we all have to dance on the hour for the rest of work?
No.
2 minutes of dancing per hour.
That is emotional manipulation that I don't wanna put myself through.
It is. Right.
Alright, well, nice job. I like that you all of you were able to make a nostalgic connection to each one of
Yes,
our
thank
goals.
you.
So, we're
Put a
challenged, but you're
connection.
welcome. Yeah, appreciate that. So, moving on, this week's topic
Mhm.
is community and culture. So last week we did community and physical environment. Again, those shared spaces, the soft edges, right? So now we're going to talk about community and culture. And just real quickly, wanted to briefly give a definition of what is
Yeah.
culture. And so culture, and this is just the Google definition, right? Merriam-Webster, I think, definition is it's the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or social group. So that is the definition of culture, right? And within that, of course, I think you have values and belief systems, but then you're going to see those feed into, customs, arts, social institutions, right? You'll build an institution based on what your value and belief is, right?
Yeah.
Or, you'll do customs that reflect your values and beliefs. So with that being said, my question I think that I have, just maybe to open us up here, is we all grew up in very different environments, very different
Mhm.
cultures, right? So I'm from the Midwest, but I'm from the southern tip of probably what is considered the Midwest.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
grew up in Southern Illinois, like you could throw rocks into Kentucky.
Okay.
So very close on that border, right? Olivia, you grew up in
I think Philly is what I feel most connected to. I
That's
lived in a few
right.
different
Yes, because
states.
you moved around.
I moved around. Born in New Jersey. Parents are from Pennsylvania. Lived in Pennsylvania. Obviously lived in Georgia for a little bit, but then came back to Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Different parts of Pennsylvania, but still, I think, yeah, that Northeast is where I
Mhm.
feel most
Yeah.
connected to.
Philly infected you.
Philly
It's a
Philly
part of
did in
you.
fact infect me, and both my parents and then right, and all that is from the Philadelphia area.
Okay. Yeah.
So, it's definitely, like, the biggest
Yeah,
connection I have. Yep.
for sure.
Mhm.
And Amanda, you grew up
In Northern Illinois, so I was in an hour north of Chicago
okay.
until I was in 2nd grade, and then I moved to Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 very different cultures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
god.
how many years is that in Illinois? That's not that long. Because in second grade.
Yeah. How maybe is that 7 or 8? Am I doing math right?
I think it's 7 or 8.
7,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. And then you moved down here and you're what? How old now?
27.
So 20 years in Tennessee
Yeah.
versus
And
7
it is so part of me.
in
Like, when I go
Illinois.
back to Illinois and I see my family, they are a different breed of
Yeah.
just the way that we communicate is different,
Yeah.
the directness, the
Yeah.
Yeah.
way that you just speak your mind, and
See, that's something that even though I, grew up in the Midwest is not something that we ever really experienced. We were very much Southern, like if you had someone you wanted to insult, you would insult them and then follow up with, "Oh, bless their heart,"
And I think
poor
that
soul.
was, like, cool to kinda do that math with you because
Mhm.
even though maybe you've lived in Tennessee with your family for 20 years, I think your familial culture didn't change though because your
Mhm.
parents were in
oh, they are so
Illinois for how
yes.
long, right?
Yep,
So just because they moved you all to Tennessee doesn't mean that, like,
yep,
your parents' culture and the way that they kind of were raised changed.
totally.
So that's interesting.
Southern
Yeah,
Illinois.
yeah. So I think something that I was curious about with you all is, you know, how how did your culture define your values versus how do your values define which culture you identify with?
Okay.
So for example, spirituality was a huge one
Okay.
growing up in my culture, in my
Yeah.
family, right? So obviously that value probably impacted the way my family culture was because it
Yeah.
was a huge value of it. So, we were raised not to cuss or drink or smoke because that was against the value of spirituality. The familial culture that I grew up in was, you didn't do those things because we valued doing what was right according to that religion. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was gonna impact the familial culture, and also, I think where we grew up in the Southern Midwest, spirituality was a very common value across our greater
Yeah.
community. So, I grew up in a very religious community. It was rare that you encountered someone that didn't say they weren't religious. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that value really was deeply rooted in that culture.
Yeah.
Can I define values to our
Sure. Yeah, go
listeners?
for it.
Okay. So when we talk about values, they are these ideals or beliefs that guide us in choosing how we show up in the world, what matters to us. How do I maybe hold myself accountable? So yeah, do we want to start sharing them?
Yeah, sure. I think the values that stuck out to me the most. So I picked ambition, empathy, knowledge, and spirituality. You wanted to be ambitious. It wasn't desirable to be, I guess, what you would call a loser. You wanted to have those achievements. You wanted to do well.
Yeah.
You wanted to have some kind of distinction of some kind. And so that was something that we valued, right? Community wise. Something that I'm curious about though, culturally, is I don't want to speak to all of Midwest because I don't know that there's a custom of Midwesterners being ambitious. But I do think Midwesterners value and build culture upon empathy. So I think there's kind of that stereotype of Midwesterners are just really nice people,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that maybe feeds into being empathetic and kind of building that community of we are nice. We might be blunt, but we empathize and we are kind to people.
I'm always curious how much religion and spirituality ties into that too.
Into empathy,
Like,
yeah,
to love my
totally.
neighbor, right? I
Yes, yep.
always am curious about, like, how that kind of ties into cultures and something that's been on my mind a lot. Yeah.
Yep, yep, for sure. I think something else to just name it is a large portion of Midwest culture is farming and
Mhm.
agriculture. I think a lot of that, ambition that might and knowledge is another value that stuck out to me. Those might feed into you are working hard for everything that you own. So part of the culture that I grew up in was you didn't get handouts. You had to be ambition. You had to take care of yourself. You had to provide for your family. You're working the land, you are farming, you're harvesting, you are constantly, learning the best ways to care for your crops, right? So that
Mhm.
your family can survive that next winter or that next season, whatever that look like. And I think a lot of that is tied into the spirituality piece too, right? You pray for a good harvest season, you pray for rain, you pray for no rain,
Yeah.
whatever you need. So I think a lot of these probably overlap. And then also a really big cultural piece for me growing up in Southern Illinois was you would give the shirt off your back to anyone else who asked
Oh,
for
okay.
it, right? And I think that also I'll speak I think that is being pulled up more from the Southern culture because I hear that saying in a lot of country songs, right? A lot
Mhm.
of deeply rooted Southern cultures of we care for one another.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not Southern, maybe it's just small town.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Small
okay.
town culture.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the best way to name this or label it if I had to put a label on it. So, small town culture, looking at knowledge, looking at empathy, looking at ambition and spirituality, all those interconnect, I think, to some degree, as far as, how you show up for others and how you show up in your community. So,
Yeah.
small towns, I think, really value those things when it comes to their culture and
Yeah.
their social institutions and their
Yeah.
customs and stuff. So,
Yeah. And that was your lived experience in your
yes, that
small
was very
town and the
much.
values that, like, you feel like you've gotten from that culture that you were
Yes.
part of. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
absolutely. And I'm really curious to hear your alls because I think, again, we just come from very different backgrounds and cultures.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I'm curious to hear yours, Amanda.
Okay, I think when I think about my culture, so my dad was born in Germany. He was born in northern Germany, and he grew up without a dad, and his mom worked on a military base. And
Oh.
he had met, or she had met her husband on this military base, which was not my dad's dad, it was his stepdad.
Mm,
And he moved here when he was a teenager. I think he was like around 12.
mm.
And when you're talking about assimilations, I'm glad that you read those definitions because they came here and told my dad, like, you will not speak German. Like,
Yep.
the way that you will fit in is you will not speak like a German.
Mhm.
And I'm curious how much that was tied to like World War II.
Mm.
if there was a safety component, and there were just this huge culture of, like, pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, which is kind of like, we are gonna work as hard as we can, like, we don't deserve anything to be handed to us, like, we are going to become an American, and to be American, there are all these very American values. My dad is, like, obsessed with American values, and he has a very different view than I think someone who is born
So
in
what does your
America.
dad think American values are? Like, if he were here, what would he say American values are?
Yeah. I feel like he would say that the amount of work you put in is what you get, and that we have a lot of opportunity, like, that was something he would tell me about a lot. So when I was picking my values, I thought it was kind of interesting. They're different than the ones I would pick for, like, my personality, but I did a lot of, like, contribution, leadership, service, wisdom, like, a lot of you are coming here and you have to almost, like, earn a right to be here. Like, you will be a
Mhm.
part of this space, you will provide service here, you will work hard, you will, um, really value, I think, the idea of freedom too. That was something my dad talked about a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I wish that I could've, because 'cause I've only ever lived in the US, I would love to know how it felt to be in such a different culture. I think my last piece, until I'll give Olivia the floor, is I think a piece my dad took was this very holistic view of health and of medicine. I got to experience a lot of herbal medicine, and when I was doing research for this podcast, it was cool to, like, look up a lot of the medicine that they use were things that my dad gave me, like echinacea, golden seal, giving these little droppers, and we did not go to the doctor as much. We did a lot of herbal medicine. I think that's a very important part of my culture to me that I got to take from him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like we've gotten to hear how you have, like, connected with people in the community
Yeah.
about herbal medicine, and
Yep.
Mhm.
that has been, like, I think a big point of connection with you for you, like, kind of in every community you go to, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
And that might feed into those bigger customs, right, that
Mhm.
make up our culture,
Yeah.
right? Like, our custom is that we do work hard for our opportunities and for our freedom, and so, like,
Mhm.
we should contribute to that. I think that's probably a big overarching maybe belief or value, just that I think the American people, if you will, United States, might share, and not all,
Yeah.
obviously, right?
Yeah.
Because we've just got so many different cultures being blended, but yeah.
Immigrants are amazing, because I can't imagine going to a new place and having to start from scratch, and even using, like, I guess, different monetary system. Like, I have to make money in this new place, find a job, learn how to speak English, like, they learned while they did not learn before they came here.
Mhm.
I think that there was some stuff that they learned in school, but I think my dad spoke for his mom. Like, there were just a lot of pieces like that too that I commend. I can't imagine.
What a hard way to connect. Like, there was a lot of work in that for him, and, like, he earned all the connection and
Yep.
support and the community that he built because he literally could not communicate when he first got here, and then so having to learn
Yes.
that and to find connections and build community, that is, like, a whole 'nother feat.
Thank
Yeah.
you for saying that. My dad is highly confident, had so much, like, respect for what he had earned, what he'd worked hard for,
Yeah.
and had a whole, like, just held a lot of confidence in that, so,
Yeah, that's, like,
Mhm.
no small feat.
yeah.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Alright.
Great.
Ooh, I'm
Alright,
excited.
Philly. Okay. So, I actually asked a few of my Philly people in my life to define Philly culture. So, I think I'm gonna start there, and then I'm gonna talk about the values that I chose and see if they aligned. I'm blind reading these, so
Mhm.
you
That's
guys are reading
exciting.
them for the first
Yeah,
time
excited.
went with me. So, okay, my one friend said, "When I think of people from Philly, in terms of sports fans, I always think loyal to a fault." And I wanna name too that sports is a big part of Philadelphia culture. Philadelphia sports is a big deal. She said, "But also assholes." She said, "We're from Philly. No one likes us. We don't care," is our vibe.
Like, we know no one
Which
likes us, but we just don't care.
yeah, and that's a big Philly sports slogan.
Okay.
Like, "We're from Philly, no one likes us, we don't care. You
Yep.
don't like us, we don't care." And fans say that a lot. "You don't like us, and we
We
don't
don't care.
care." But I feel like that attitude is people from Philly in general, not just sports. So, that was one of my friends. I also wanna name that everyone that I asked this, besides one person, has actually all of them have lived in other places too. So they've, like, left Philly, experienced different areas, lived in
Yeah.
many different areas, which I think is cool. My one friend said, I'd say a blue-collar town that's passionate, enjoys food and bars. I'd even go a bit gritty, and then I'd say city of brotherly love, harsh but fair and from a place of care. That was a cool one.
Yeah,
They even threw in a little rhyme.
Yeah, and
Also,
then
blue collar.
yeah, a lot of blue-collar workers.
Really?
Yes.
See, now that is not a picture that I have in my head when I think of Philly, so I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, and Pennsylvania can get very rural very
Mhm.
fast, which is really confusing. Like, I lived 45, 30, depending on traffic, 30 to 45 minutes outside of the city of
Mhm.
Philadelphia, and I lived like, there was farmland all around.
Yeah,
So
was not
it's
Philly.
very startling. Like, you're like, "Oh my gosh," now all of a sudden and then Lancaster is I'm not even gonna try to guess from the city, but I was 30 minutes removed. Lancaster was, like, an hour from me, and that's, like, Amish, people are riding in horse and buggies, there's just farmland everywhere.
Okay.
It's an interesting vibe, and then someone said, "We are mean and kind," a little grungy.
So, I'm hearing
Yeah.
gritty, grungy.
Yep.
Yeah. So I wrote down some words to describe it before we did values, but I
Mhm.
think the values kind of tie in too. So I said the city of brotherly love, which someone else said. I said grit, passion, die hard, connection everywhere.
Die hard.
Yeah. So I put loyalty as a value.
Mhm.
I said passion. There's a lot of passion in that city and a lot of self-expression. You don't like us, we don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yep.
express who I am, I'm gonna be who I am, and so
Yeah.
I also put genuineness, and then I kinda cheated and said social connection because I
Yeah.
think it's a big connection point for me personally, and the reason
So
I
what
s
makes Philly so like, socially connected? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
How do you
so
assign that to
so
this whole
I was out to Josh and I grabbed lunch this weekend, and there was this little family sitting at a table, and they all had Philadelphia Eagles gear on, and when they got up to leave, I just gave a good old, "Go Birds!" And he was like, "Yeah, go Birds, baby!" And we had a whole interaction, and
Okay.
I'll be on the phone with one of my best friends who lives in San Diego, and the amount of times I've been on the phone with him and someone has stopped him and given a "Go Birds," or, you know,
Okay.
like, yeah, "Go Birds," and then he gets real hype and says a "Go Birds," and then they're talking about where they're from in Philadelphia or what their
Gotcha.
connection
Yep.
is, and so I think that is something that, like, keeps us connected no matter where we are. Also, I would love to kinda do some research, but Philadelphia has Philly bars designated in almost every city where, like, you go and you watch Philadelphia sports in that bar with a
Wow.
bunch of Philadelphia fans.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, like, when we moved to Georgia, my dad found a bar
'Cause you
where
guys
all
need your own
Philadel
space
Yeah,
'cause no one likes
because no one likes us and we don't care,
care.
Courtney.
Yeah.
And I think we are mean, but not to I don't know, like, I think there is a lot of directness, there's a lot of, "I am who I am, and I'm not gonna change who I am in the space just to make you comfortable or to accommodate you." But
In
there's a
my
lot of love, it's the city of brotherly love. Yeah.
Because in my head, I'm thinking that's opposite of connection, right? I'm not gonna accommodate you. I'm not going to be apologetic for who I am.
Yeah, and yet you're allowed to be that same way.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Like, it's
So it's
easy
not
to do the back and
hostile
forth,
if
yeah.
you are also
Yeah.
not accommodating. We're both not accommodating, and we
We're
fit.
both
Now we're
accepting.
connected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That
we're
reminds
both
me of
accepting and it's gritty, it's
Mhm.
grungy, but I think there is a lot of kindness, and I do think we all feel very connected, and, like, they're gonna stop and have a conversation with you about Philadelphia
Yeah.
sports. They're gonna give you a good old high five. They're gonna shout back at you across the airport. I could yell, "Go Birds," and that person would give me it. And what a form of connection of just, like, you're wearing a Philadelphia Eagles hat, and I
Yeah.
throw that at you, and we are now
Yeah.
connected and, like, chanting back at each other. But I do think there's passion and there's boldness and grittiness. It's something I think about a lot too, and I think the mean thing is, like, we're not holding doors. We are hustling and bustling. I'm not waiting for you to get to the door. I'm
Yeah.
closing the door and I'm walking in. But, while we're in Wawa together making our coffee, "Hey, how's your day? How about them birds? Did you see that game?" Like, people are gonna it's just different
Yeah.
than, like, your typical politeness. And I think maybe that's more what it is. We're not polite.
Okay.
We're
Yep.
not a
Okay, yeah.
polite city.
Maybe mannerisms.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yep. Like
I'm gonna bump
once.
into you on the street, and I'm not gonna expect you to say sorry, and I'm not gonna say sorry
You're not
to
gonna say,
you.
"Oh." Yeah.
We're just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
We're gonna move, and it's gonna be kinda like, "Oh, you should've moved out of my way," and it's gonna be like, "Oh, I should've got out of the way," I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm summing it up right, but I think there's not that politeness. I think that's kind of out of it. It's interesting that everyone kinda said the same things, and so that was
That
fun
is funny.
for me to do, but, yeah, I just don't think we're polite.
Mhm.
If you were at a bar in Philly, are they the type of people who all talk to each other?
Yes,
Okay,
totally.
because I was thinking about that. When I lived in Cali for a year with Taylor, with my husband, I remember we would go out to eat and everyone next to you would just, like, turn and talk to you and, like, ask you about your day and talk like, even if there wasn't a connection, like, over sports, and it was weird because I think in the
Yeah.
South, we kind of keep to our own bubbles and we're kind, we don't wanna bother other people, but there, like, everyone would just talk to each other or go up to you and just, like, state their opinion and or be very blunt about something that
What
they
part of
don't.
Cali?
It was Southern California.
I wonder if it's different
I wonder if it's different
depending on what
too.
part.
Yeah.
'Cause I think too, I'm sure outside of Philadelphia, you had very different cultures within
Oh my god,
Pennsylvania.
for sure. I
Yeah,
mean, I just talked
yeah.
about Lancaster, which, like, there's a big Amish
Right,
community, and
right.
that is
Yeah.
not the same. That's
Not the same,
very obviously
yes.
vastly different.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I do think there's a lot of surrounding areas that kind of obviously echo that same
Yeah.
thing, that similar vibe, but
Yep.
it's probably more suburban or, a little bit
Mhm.
more whatever, but, um, yeah, I think probably the mean is, like, we're not polite. There's not that manners of,
Mhm.
like, yeah, the
Yes, ma'am,
politeness,
no
the "Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, I'm not,"
Mhm.
Yep.
"So sorry," or "Excuse me, sorry," and it's like,
Get the
"Well,"
Mhm.
door for you.
yeah, like,
Yep.
we're both walking through a tiny hallway, like, I really don't feel apologetic, like, we just both have to get through this, or Josh will get really embarrassed when we're out shopping because you'll do that little dance at the door where it's like, "No, you go, no, you go."
Yep.
I don't I just go. I'm not doing the dance. I am like, we're here to walk into this building,
Yes.
so maybe that's a little
That's
bit of that, but,
yeah.
I think "You don't like us, we don't care," but there's a lot of passion and a lot of love, and when I went to the Super Bowl parade, there was a lot of mob mentality, but the minute we'd be like, "We won the Super Bowl," everything would diffuse, everyone would connect, and then mob mentality would start back. But that's kinda how it
Yes.
is, I don't know how else to describe it. I think it's a really interesting
Mhm.
community, but I do think people would help each other out and stop and help you if your tire was flat on the side of the road too.
Yeah.
I still think that's there. So
Yeah.
that's my best way of describing it. I think I went on a lot of side
Are
tangents and
people
rambled.
stereotypically, like, aggressive drivers? Is that a thing?
Uh, we're offensive
Offensive.
drivers. We're
Okay, thank you.
offensive drivers. Yep.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
We can merge in Tennessee.
I
I'm not
know.
even gonna.
I know.
I
It's
Yeah.
gonna
think
start a
everyone
whole
should be
thing.
offensive drivers, and maybe that's my hot take for this episode,
Yes.
but I think everyone on the road should be on the offense.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
yeah,
wouldn't have
be
so
be
many issues merging
yeah.
if people were offensive
I
drivers.
mean, be defensive, like, take care of yourself, be safe, but get where you're going.
Yep.
Like,
Use it
let's
to
be on the
Well, and
offense
that's
if
that
we're trying
dang
to score.
politeness for me too. Like, no, keep driving the pace you were driving because I am ready to come in and now
Golly.
you're slowing down and you're screwing me up. Like,
I
don't
I think I would enjoy driving in Philly,
do what?
actually. Yeah,
What?
yeah.
And people use their horns. And I'm
Oh,
sorry, but
that's
a horn
beautiful.
is in a car for
For
a
a
reason.
reason.
Don't honk your horn. I'm like, why? Like it's in my
So funny.
vehicle.
It's in my vehicle, you're not doing something that you should be doing.
So I'm letting you.
I'm letting you know. And
You don't like me and I don't care.
a big way we connect yes, exactly. A big way we connect with other humans is by communication, and honking, by golly, is communication.
Yeah.
So is flashing your lights to let people know there's a cop. That was protected under our First
Yes.
Amendment yep, First Amendment, freedom of
Heck
speech.
yeah. Was it really?
It sure is.
It
Yep.
sounds like our partners are very similar. Because Taylor, if I'm walking around a store and I'm hustling, he's like, you need to say, "Excuse me, you're so close to them." And I'm like, "No, I wasn't. I wasn't close to them at all." And then when we're driving, I'll use my horn. He'd be like, "Why are you using it?" Like, he's the same way. "Why are you using your horn?" It's like and I think that's hilarious.
Well,
They're
and
both Southern boys, aren't they?
and he is a defensive driver. He stays in the right lane. He drives very slow. So he doesn't do a lot of driving.
At least he's in the
Yes.
right lane. I don't care what speed he's going, in the right lane. If you would have told me he would have been hanging out in the left lane, I'd be in trouble.
You'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think too, maybe some of that where that comes from for me was my mom instilled in me very early on that all 4 of her kids were gonna be good drivers. And I mean, she, one of her biggest pet peeves, and I don't know if this factors into culture, I'm sure it does to some degree, but when people go to pass another car and they slow down. as they're passing. If my mom was in this room right now, I think she would be turning red
Yeah,
because that
I'm just
is
thinking about
she
it.
just yeah, and she said, "I better never ever pass you in the right lane." And I'm like,
Yes, ma'am.
"Yes, ma'am."
I
Yep,
hear
so
you.
I hear
yep.
you.
Yeah, and so my husband, he'll get passed in the right lane, and I'm looking at him, like, giving him the evil glare, like,
You
"You
mean in the
better
left
get
lane?
your" well, no, people are so we're in the left lane, but people are passing us in the right
Him
lane.
in the right lane to get around.
For
Gotcha.
Yeah.
them going
So
slower.
Yeah.
so he is in the left lane, people are passing the right
Right
lane.
lane. Yes, I
He
got you
needs
now.
to get back over into the right lane because that's where
Yes.
he belongs.
Do you know where that is like a huge deal? Is in the state of Maryland. People
Where?
actually only really drive in the left lane to pass people. It is like a lane that they believe you should not be driving in unless you are passing.
Well, okay, but that's how it is for most states. Most states have some law that dictates, okay, slower speed or yeah, slower moving vehicles keep right,
Okay.
except to pass. The left lane is a passing lane.
Yes, but
That is not
Maryland, they take that to heart.
They do.
every state does.
Does Tennessee take that to heart?
No!
Okay, well,
That's I'm sorry, every state needs to.
okay.
So, I misspoke. I see, I'm
Okay.
so heated.
I know.
I'm
I
just
know you
throwing
have
out
road
stuff.
rage, so
I
this
do.
is killing me.
Yep. I'm getting road rage and I'm not driving.
I wanted to mention it because I like the minute that I hit Chicago when we were going home, it is just insane. Like you have to be mentally prepared that
Oh, I
people will pull out in
love
front of you. They're gonna be fast.
yes.
If you don't hit your gas the minute the light goes off, you are being honked at.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I move very slow. I don't like to move fast. So I think my sister will drive through when we do that. That'd be a good idea.
I
It's fair.
love Chicago.
You do?
Those people are maniacs
They
in
are.
a beautiful way. I'm like, this is how traffic needs to flow.
Yeah, it is
So,
intense.
There's no
Intense.
politeness. I think that
No.
yeah, and they're not playing around. You got into your car for a purpose, and I want you to fulfill that purpose as quickly and efficiently as possible. So, anyway,
all right, there's our
so
road rage rant.
yeah, maybe culture and driving. How are you raised to drive in your culture? So,
Most
Well, I
definitely.
think that is such a big piece. I think different communities, there is a different,
yeah,
like, I know that I went on a bachelorette trip with a group of people who had grown up in like East Tennessee and going and driving through like Maryland and even like when they had to go to Georgia, that was like they didn't grow up on a 4-lane highway on a 5,
Yep.
6, right? And that does create a difference in how we drive. Like if you
yes,
grow up on driving on back roads and your biggest highway is 2 lanes, it is a much different experience when you get to a city that drives very differently. There is different rules to the game and
Yeah.
depending on where you're at. Like there really is.
Yeah.
And is it more appropriate? Like because I don't hear as many horns in
Mhm.
Tennessee
Oh,
as I
no.
do.
no.
You know what I
Get-
mean? Like
if you get honked at in Tennessee, I mean, the person's taking it as a personal insult.
totally.
Like someone's flipping you off or cussing you out.
yeah.
If
Oh,
you get-
Yeah.
But if
That's a
I
great
get
point.
honked at it, I take it as, oh, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Let me figure out what it is.
Yeah, or
Take
maybe
that
like I don't
yeah.
my lights aren't on and you're
Yeah.
letting me know or
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
That's
You're
I
just
don't-
communicating with me.
I'm gonna steal from Philly, but I don't care
Mhm.
if you're doing something wrong while you're out on the road. I'm not honking to insult you. If I wanted to insult you, you'd know.
It would be
I
a
mean,
little different.
I'd be doing bumper cars, all right? We'd be physically escalating, all right? But me honking at you because you're sitting at a green light because you're not paying attention? No, you better get your butt moving.
Just
if I'm
simple.
honking.
Yep,
yeah,
Just
just
communicating with you.
Communication.
Just letting you know.
I got places to be. You got places to be, I'm assuming, if you're out on the road. So, anyway. So, I think on that note, kind of talking about cultures and stuff is something that I think maybe we can all speak to is obviously we all grew up in the United States, and I think
Mhm.
we all, or I say all, but us three specifically, I know we
Mhm.
talked a lot about culture and diversity in our
Like within our
college degrees,
Yeah,
right?
within our
Like
majors,
yes,
yeah.
within our majors, within our schooling, within our universities and stuff. And so, obviously we heard the, collectivistic versus individualistic cultures. So, collectivistic cultures, obviously they are going to value more of those. You're interdependent, right?
Mhm.
You are part of a system, you are part of a whole. And so that's something that they really push in those cultures. And so whereas individualistic cultures, they're going to value more of that independence, more of that individual freedom, if you will, and, contributions, earning
Mhm.
what you make, right? So I think that goes back to the ambition, the knowledge, right? You earn what's yours, you earn to keep it. There's not really this collection of, you know, I earn my paycheck and I'm gonna give so much to Olivia and so much to Amanda because I think they
Mhm,
deserve that because I'm part of that unit.
mhm,
That's more of collectivistic. Individualistic is I put in the 40 hours, I earned it, I worked for it. Olivia and Amanda shouldn't get any of it, right?
Mhm.
And that's a very, very basic
Yeah,
way,
of course, of
right? So I'm
course.
dumbing that way, way down and not doing either of those cultures justice because there's pros and cons to both. I think though in the United States, the last that I checked research wise is, the United States is more of an individualistic culture, right? We really value independence. We really value being self reliant, self efficacy, I guess. Yeah. So competence, our freedom, right? You better not do anything that fringes upon my rights,
Mhm.
Olivia. Otherwise, now I've got an issue with you, right? So I think with that, something that I wanted to touch on, because I think it really ties into more of that individualistic culture, is Appalachian culture. So
mhm.
we live in the Appalachia region, and I'm really curious, do you guys all say Appalachia or do you pronounce it differently?
Appalachia is
Appalachia?
how I pronounce it. How do you pronounce it?
Have you ever said that word,
I
Olivia?
don't think so. I think I would say Appalachian. Action. I
Appalachian?
think
Yeah.
I'd say
Oh,
Appalachian
Appalachian?
is
Yeah.
how I would
Yeah.
my gut would tell me to
Yes.
pronounce it, but I don't actually, to be very transparent, honest, don't know much about that culture.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
love to know more.
I've, like,
Yep.
learned a little bit more from
Mhm.
being with you all and being here over the last, like, 8 months, but I feel like I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and if there's any history buffs out there, please correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm going to say this very surface level
Okay.
because my knowledge on it is extremely limited. But I think, interestingly enough, I think the immigrants that kind of settle the Appalachians are also similar to the same people that settled where I grew up.
Mhm.
Oh,
So, like,
cool. Okay.
and when I say that, so, and this was just kind of a quick search. So there's Scotch, Irish, German, and Cherokee influences within the
Okay.
Appalachian culture. And that is also a large part of what settled Southern Illinois,
Okay.
Western Kentucky.
Cool.
So I think we share a lot in the sense of deep rooted Scotch, Irish, German cultures as far as influences.
Mm.
Now, obviously, modern 2026 is going to look a lot different than when they first settled there. So, Appalachian culture, just from what I've kind of looked up and what I researched, is they value resiliency, and it's a distinct tradition built on self-reliance, strong family ties, right? So don't mess with me or my family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
And then
I
a
see
deep
that.
connection to the land. And I think we see that a lot,
We do.
right?
We do.
So we really, and I say we, I'm not going to lump myself in because I haven't lived here my whole life. But here in Eastern Tennessee, I think West Virginia is really big, really heavy on that.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they all really value those family ties. I think also some of that is kind of that relative isolation in the sense of you're growing up in a region that is still vastly, I would say, undeveloped. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
you the Scots family kinda has their mountain that they live on, and that's
Okay.
kind of where they've got, their family members, they've got their, you know, family compounds is probably the more modern word for
Yeah.
it, but, outside of that, it might take them 30, 45 minutes to get to a grocery
Yeah.
store, right? So
Totally.
they're kind of out there, it's very rural living. So, and that was similar to how I grew up. Now, we lived within 10 minutes of a Walgreens, right? But I didn't get a Walgreens in our town, I think, until 2011. So I would have been 11, 12 years old, and it might have been
That
later than
must have been a
that.
big deal.
It was
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
huge deal. So, and then we had, like, a local grocery store, but
Were people in your community excited for that Walgreens to
yeah,
be there? Okay,
yeah,
I was curious if
yeah.
there
I
was,
mean,
like, some.
yeah, there was a healthy mix, right?
Okay,
Some were
okay,
like, "Meh," and then
okay,
of all the things we could get, we get at Walgreens. I
okay.
think a lot of the elderly people really valued it because it gave a pharmacy, yeah,
Medication, yeah.
medication. A lot of us were like, it's a convenient, right? You just pop in, you grab some stuff. Photos were a big thing. Like you had to
Yeah.
go into Kentucky to get photos done, I think, because I don't
Wow,
think there was
okay.
anywhere you could do stuff like that. Um, Obviously, by that time you had online stuff, so
Yeah,
you didn't have to, but it just gave a more
it was
like
a perk.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yep.
convenience. Yep.
So, um, trying to think. I think that stuff really resonates with me. A lot of the Appalachian culture resonates with how I was raised. You know,
Mhm.
small town, deep roots to the land. I mean, my family grew up well, where I live, my grandpa on my dad's side, his family settled that. So, I'm talking generations and generations
Mm.
of my grandpa's family has been in that very specific spot, and we still live there today.
Wow, that's
So,
really cool.
yeah, yeah, and so, kind of like here with, like, the last name, like, Husky, that's we know that's a really long, deep-rooted name. We
Yeah.
know Shields is a really long,
Yep.
right, like, generations and generations. So, again, deep connection in the land, those rich family ties, self-reliance, though, right, like, how we take care of ourselves, how we how do we build our family strong, how do we take care of our family, blood is thicker than water, I think would be a really good and I know that's not actually the complete version of that saying I recently learned, but,
Really?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
more to it, but I'm gonna take that chunk because I think a lot of people will recognize that, like, you know, I think Appalachian culture values that blood is thicker than water, and you better not come at me or my family because 'cause I'm gonna defend them to my dying breath, is kinda how
Yeah.
I get. So, I don't know, do you guys see any of those influence outside of Appalachian culture, though? Or do you see that here? Does all that resonate with this area?
I feel like what you're speaking to is the strong family ties, which is a
Mhm,
big piece of that area, but also the isolation of,
mhm.
like it kinda reminds me of our last episode when we were talking about tribal living,
Yeah.
that decision that you make, "Do I go outside of my tribe? Is it safer to go outside or is it safer to stay?"
Mhm,
And there's also the resources component of, like, how easy and accessible was it to leave that area.
mhm.
I think I asked you guys this in the last episode too, like, how open and welcoming we are to new people coming into our space, and how tied we are to our families, staying within our family staying within the same area.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like in Knoxville, I've heard a lot of people have s actually, I don't know. I don't wanna assume. Do we
Mm.
feel like Knoxville is that kinda space where a lot of families stay and they don't migrate out?
I think it used to. I
Okay.
think it has recently changed. The reason I say that is because I think there's been such an influx of people
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
that I think you still have your families that have lived here and stay
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But I think you can say that for a lot of places. I mean, my family still lives and stays where they
Yeah.
grew up,
Yeah.
so I moved. I was kind of the oddball out on that, and not in a negative way, but in a sense of, I think Knoxville is very attractive to other people moving out of where they're
Mhm.
from.
It's a
But I
good
don't know if people
balance.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't gonna answer, I don't think, either of your questions, but a thought I've been having, like, the whole time that you've been talking about this is just
Mhm.
how much, like, culture impacts community, which is obviously what we're talking about today, but, like, you saying that, like, I relate a lot with the Appalachian culture because
Mhm,
it's very similar to where I'm from, and then,
mhm.
like, I think it's cool how then that builds community because I've heard you talk a lot about that culture with other
Mhm.
people who
Yes.
know about it and, like,
Yep.
make connections, right? And,
Yep.
like, find commonality, and I think it's
Mhm.
been really fun how the whole time we've been talking, we've been able to make connections of, like, yes, or I respect that part of that
Mhm.
culture, and I actually value that too,
Oh,
and what, like, a
yes.
point of connection, and I think it ties all back to, like, values and having similar values and beliefs and rituals, how that just creates so much connection and community for
Yeah.
us, and I just doesn't really answer your question because I don't know a lot about that
Yeah.
culture, and I think it's been really fun, though, to think about how people can connect to that, though, like, family is really important to me, and I see that, like, your family's been here for generations and how cool, and maybe I can be the catalyst of that for my family in the future, and maybe we'll get roots and land in
Mhm.
Knoxville, and that's something that I've, like, learned from you, and that was, like, part of your culture, and I want that to be part of, like, my values and maybe
Yeah.
my family origin moving forward, and how how that just builds so much community
Yeah.
for us, and
Yeah.
that's my thought.
Well, and I like that because I think what you said is culture.
Yeah,
All of those things
yeah,
that Right, so we know the definition is customs, art, social institution achievements, but those all stem from some kind of value, some kind of common goal of we want to, value resiliency and we want to value strong family ties. You could tie that, I mean, that is a value. And so therefore you're going to build a culture around those values. So like you were saying, Olivia, there is such a big connection through all of those values, and once you find more and more people that share those values, you're going to then build institutions, you're going to have achievements, you're going to do the customs that reflect those
Yeah.
values.
Actually, Olivia, do you care if I ask you a question? I've been thinking about this.
Yeah, sure.
You have gone to experience so many different cultures, like through moving. So Philly culture resonated with you the most, but you've gone to experience so many different ones. And it makes me think of I remember being in school and white people saying that they didn't have a culture. They're like, and maybe that they didn't resonate with the values of Southern culture. So they just feel like I don't have any culture. I don't have family that came from another country. I've just been here. Almost like they're downplaying that. But now that I'm thinking about you got to experience so many, and it sounds like you got to pick what you value, like what resonates with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great question. I think the most, like, startling difference that I had
Mhm.
truly was coming from Pennsylvania to then living, like, right side of Atlanta.
Yeah.
So right outside of Atlanta and right outside of Philly were very different, and I think a lot of the pieces is just how we communicate. I
Yeah.
think that is something I think a lot about with it's just a starting point of connection is how we communicate. A funny story I have I'll never forget, in 2nd grade, it was the first week of school. My teacher was like, "Don't forget your tennis shoes tomorrow. We have PE." I went home and I said to my mom, "We need to go buy tennis shoes. I need them for PE tomorrow." And she's like, "Oh, tennis shoes are just sneakers. Like, we don't actually have to go buy real tennis shoes." And I
Okay.
was like, "What the heck are tennis shoes?" Like, to me,
Yes.
tennis shoes were like, you play tennis, just like cleats, right? Like, to
Yes.
me, it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
specific
Yeah.
sport footwear. And she just meant sneakers, just bring your sneakers for PE. And that was, like,
So
such a
cute.
weird shift. So I
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, the whole
Language.
time you were sitting there telling the story, I'm like, "Where is she going? Are you telling me Philly people don't own tennis shoes?"
we don't call them tennis shoes.
Yeah, I don't call them sneakers. Yeah. So
And
I was like, "Where's Olivia going with this? What do you mean you have to
yes.
go buy tennis shoes?" Yeah,
And then
I never thought
respect.
of that.
We've talked a lot about politeness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it was very disrespectful for me to call someone ma'am who was in their 30s or their 40s. That was a big
Mm.
no-no
Where at?
in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Like, no one called my mom ma'am
Yeah.
because she wasn't a ma'am. She was in her 30s. She was in her
Right.
40s. That is kinda how it's taken. And
Mhm.
then again, first week of 2nd grade, I had, like, the Southern belle of the school. Like, Slee, I'll never forget her. She was a Southern lady, and she
Mhm.
said to me, she's like, "Yes, what?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Yeah, what?" And I said, "Yes, please." Like, I
I
had
had no
no clue
You
what
know
idea.
what
she
she
was
was
trying to
searching
get from
for.
me, and she goes,
Yep.
"Yes, ma'am." And I said, "Yeah,
Oh.
yes, ma'am. Okay." Like, little
Were you
did
like, "Wow,
I
I didn't
know
realize you were that old."
little did I know that that was respectful. And so,
Yeah.
I think learning how people communicate and, like, what
Mhm.
is respectful and what is not is something that's really interesting from
Mhm.
place to place. And then I've had to, like, transition into being comfortable with kids calling me ma'am because it still startles
Mhm.
me when kids call me ma'am. I'm like and I have a pretty big reaction to it. And sometimes I'm like, "Oh, sorry, like, that was very respectful of you, and I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that."
Mhm.
Like, it is what it is. But I do think we have different cultures depending on where we are through, like, what is considered polite, what is respectful, how do we
Mhm.
communicate with one another, what do
The
we call
words.
certain and I love the words game that we all play. Like, how do
Yes.
you pronounce water? Do you say soda? Do you say pop? Do you say
Yes.
and those are
Mhm.
always such
Sneakers or tennis shoes.
sneakers or tennis shoes, and I feel like those are always fun conversations to have to, like, connect with one another, and
Mhm.
we all have pretty,
Yeah.
like, strong opinions on, like, how we think you would pronounce something
Yeah.
or how you should say it, and so
Yep.
I think that is part of culture too, and I think religion is very different, like,
Mhm.
Catholicism is very popular in the Northeast, but I would say Christianity and Southern Baptist is
Mhm.
really popular here, and that was not
Yeah.
like, Baptist was really something I had not experienced until I moved to the South or knew
Yeah.
much about it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see, like, it made you so adaptable because I feel like I see you as a very adaptable
Yeah.
person, and that makes that's
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be hard to have to shift to all these cultures and, like, change how I interact and how I respond, the words I use, but I see you also as an adapter.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's so fun then to, like, also at an older age get to travel and, like, see different cultures and experience that because
So
they're all very different,
Yeah.
and they all interact and connect very differently.
Yeah.
So that's a good question. Yeah, yeah, and I will say, like, the shift from, like, New Jersey like, some of the other moves I had were not as drastic as going from, like, north to south. That was the
Yep.
biggest
Yep.
change for
Yeah.
me. Yep. Yep, and then everyone waves, that's not a big thing, like, I remember we pulled into my neighborhood, it's like a core memory, and we had just moved to Georgia, and everyone is waving to my dad, and I'm like, "Did you meet all these people already?" And he's like, "No, people just, like, wave and say hello in the neighborhood," and I was like, "But we don't know them." Like, that was very odd to me, like, we didn't know them, and they're all waving and saying hello to us.
Yep.
So, that is a big, like, funny difference is,
Mhm.
like, the way that people connect.
Mhm.
So
and now you wanna connect more with your neighbors.
now I
So
do,
that's a
now I'm the
purpose you're
one waving out
taking.
the window, I'm like, "I don't know you, why are you waving to me?" So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All the
Yeah.
parts we get to take and keep
Yes.
and
Yeah.
wanna get rid of.
Yes,
Yes.
Love
yeah, we
it.
get to decide.
And I think that's a good maybe segue into this week's challenge is, so we talked a lot about beliefs and values and how they can make up culture, right?
Yeah.
And how they make up the customs and the beliefs and the institutions that are in place within our culture. So I think this week's challenge is we want to get curious about how does our culture show up one in our community, but then also how does our culture show up in the ways we connect, right? Do we connect with other people who are also spiritual? Do we connect with other people who also value knowledge or empathy or genuineness or what was one of yours, passion, right?
Mhm.
So how does our culture impact the way that we connect and create community and find community? So
Are you gonna go to a Philly bar?
I have looked
why
and
don't we go to a Philly bar?
I have looked, and I don't think Knoxville has one.
Uh-huh.
'Cause
It's the travel.
yes, because I looked, and funny enough, like, when we were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, there is a lot of people from the Northeast, like, from New Jersey,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, that go to school at the University of
Yeah,
Tennessee,
yeah,
and you would have thought you were in a Philly bar.
That's great.
You
yeah, like, just a lot of
truly
people showed up.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and showed out
Oh, that
for
makes
that,
sense.
but I have looked, and I have not found anything, so I'll
Well,
keep you
Ooh,
updated.
that'd
and
be a
if
good
you
thing to
think
see.
Maybe I'll
about it
create one.
yeah, and if you think about it geographically, we are closer to the East Coast than we are really, anything out west, right? So
Yeah,
depending on who's in the Super Bowl, you would probably have significantly more Philly fans,
yeah,
isn't right?
yeah.
Than Oregon Duck fans or something like I'm trying to think of
Yes.
Western
Yeah, we're
teams,
still, like you can still drive.
Yeah,
It's not like it's so far that it's
right.
a long flight away or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Alrighty, so I think that's it. I think we got our challenge, and yeah, next week we'll continue tackling community. So take a look at that, and we hope you guys join us. So thanks for tuning in.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Stay connected.
As always, please remember, you are someone's human connection and you are never alone. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis or emergency, please call 988 911 or a crisis response unit in your area. Disclaimer: the thoughts, opinions, and topics discussed in this podcast are not intended for mental health treatment, service, or diagnostic purposes. All opinions expressed are solely those of the host, co-host, and guests. Resources mentioned can be found in the written show notes. Thanks again for tuning in to the Human Reconnect podcast.